From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn Ledbetter, and I have the pleasure of having one of my very best friends on the show today, Kenda Trollinger. Kenda, thanks for joining me today.
Good to see you.
And your actual title, you are?
A business development specialist at Interim Home Health Care.
And your degree is actually a Bachelor of Social Worker, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been in this field, that's how we actually met.
Right. Yeah.
Went to work
when
the new hospital was built, and now that was new, but that was 20 plus years ago now.
Right.
But worked together there, and you were actually the social worker there at the hospital.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your family. I mean, I know you guys grew up in Clovis and long-term family, but tell me about your parents.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Clovis. My parents were both school teachers. Dad was a city commissioner in Clovis. There's a lot of history there. There's a baseball field named after my father there. He was the district administrator of a little league there. And then my mom was a third grade teacher. And I have one brother, and he's a preacher. And he lives in East Texas.
Okay. And I know you're very much great relationships with a couple of nephews and some niece and nephews along with that.
Yes,
so,
very much so.
What all were you? You're very social and very interactive with people, and I know you're involved in a lot of things growing up. I know softball, that was a big love of yours.
Oh yeah, I started playing softball when I was 6 years old and played until in my late 40s, and actually am in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
For New Mexico.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So,
yeah.
And do you still play? I know you play volleyball still.
I play volleyball still. No, I kind of gave up softball.
It was time to move on.
Yeah. That was a history with my father, and that's how we, spent our summers usually.
Well, and I just remember special moments where your dad made sugar cookies that were shaped like Santa Claus and different things, and always had the Disney cutouts in front of y'all's home. And
yes, that history went back way before I was even born. We had Disney characters that we would develop and put in front of our yard at Christmas. So we had 163 of them, I think.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Y'all were the house that everybody drove by, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what was it that drew you to social work?
Actually, I went into teaching.
Really?
I was going to be a school teacher, and I did my whole college career up to my senior year, and I went to summer missions in inner city Houston and dealt with the Hells Angels and some of the poverty level stuff there, and came back a social worker.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so I had to do another year of college just to change my degree I had already gone through my practicum and everything in teaching.
Well, and I know you're a very strong person of faith.
Yes.
And you're always that person that tends to reach out and help people, and so that's just inside of you. You just, when you got there, that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I came back and felt a calling from God to change the career and help people in life, basically.
Right. So what was your first gig as a social worker?
Children, Youth, and Families is what it's called now, but it was called Human Services back in the day, and it was the child abuse and neglect, adult abuse and neglect was my first job.
In Clovis?
In Clovis, where I grew up. So I saw a lot of people that I actually graduated with having issues as well and want to take their kids home with me. So that was tough. But
well, and you didn't have kids yourself, but you'd said that probably the reasoning for that was you had so many others that you always took care of.
Yeah, I loved on everybody else's children.
And the same with mine.
Yes,
so,
yes.
They always think of you as part of the family as well. So after working there, where did you transition after that?
I went to Inmersh, and I was in the early childhood program, and I helped with the disabled children.
Okay.
Yeah, birth to 3.
All right, and then next?
And then Plains Regional Medical Center in Clovis, and that was a discharge planning job and a social worker job. I was director of social services there for about 6 years, and then had the opportunity to go build a hospital in Portales, and I felt the calling to come here, and I was here 18 years.
And then you came up with me, so
I came up with you as the best friend.
Bad luck, huh? I don't know.
No.
How much of a transition from the working with the children and the youth and family going into the healthcare setting?
It's pretty similar because in the healthcare setting, you don't ever know what's going to walk in the doors at a hospital, and so you just deal with it. And there was child abuse and neglect there as well.
Right.
And adult abuse, you know. So basically, you dealt with all the resources you needed to do for those people and try to think about what they might need on discharge and trying to think out of the box on the hard ones.
Oh, and there's a lot of those. I mean, I know just from my time, and even though I was in the finance department, what all we saw and what was dealt with there.
Yes.
I mean, even though HIPAA is very much a part of that, you have the experience of the family members that are going through things, that are talking out in the hallways, and you're aware of situations happening, that you try to give them that privacy, but someone like you is very important to be in that setting.
Yeah.
So,
Very much so.
well, and along with that, you weren't only just a counselor or a social worker to the person that was going through something traumatic. You did a lot of things with the hospital workers as well.
Yes, if they saw something that was pretty traumatic, I would have to debrief them as well so that they didn't have burnout in healthcare. And, you know, there's a lot of PTSD with healthcare workers, and they can really take it in. And
Right.
so you really need to debrief them after the traumatic event, whatever
Sure,
that is.
Sure. Whether they've dealt with the family or, you know.
Or saw something come in the doors in the back of the ER or something like that, that they can relate to their own family or something like that, and just trying to get them back on track.
And, you know, the reality of life, you have children that come into the ER and.
Some of them don't make it out.
Right. And that hits everybody all through the hospital really hard.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
let's dig into, I know you're super involved in the community in Clovis, and so you're involved with the chamber and what all else?
I'm on the executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also on the music festival committee. Gosh, I have a lot of part-time jobs. I love to work, so I'm working for a funeral home. I'm working for Hallmark cards as a gig as well. So there's just little part-time jobs that I pick up every now and then.
You're just a mixed bag of tricks, a little bit of everything.
I've been a medical examiner in the past, and so that was kind of
What
fun.
made you decide to step away from working the hospital work?
My mother eventually needed my help in Clovis. I drove back and forth from Clovis for 18 years, and 19 miles was just a little bit too far if she needed me. She was in her 80s, but that was a God thing too, because she wasn't sick when I felt the calling to leave. And I kept saying no. It took him a month in the interim to try to convince me to leave, and then 6 months later she was on full-time oxygen and needing my help. So I was back at home by then.
And part of that, I know it's a development is the title, but actually it's truly a lot of marketing. But I think you had a ton of connections.
Yes, it was pretty easy transition because all the doctors I worked with in both hospitals I'm working with now as well, just helping their patients in home health care settings and hospice settings now.
Because basically your job, you're the liaison basically between the family and doing the referral to getting the home health or hospice care set up, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
And you do well with all age ranges and cultures and issues and non-judgmental, so it's a great spot for you. Or if someone's on the other side. When my mom was ill, that was a huge thing, was she needed some care, but she still owned just enough property that she couldn't, she didn't have the money to write a check.
Right.
But having that property made it where she wasn't eligible for the care. Will you talk a little bit about that, of when people are going through that part of their life?
Right. Yeah. Basically, you're healthy. You don't think you're going to need the care, but the requirement is you need to have a 5-year plan ahead before you need it. And so you really need to get rid of all your assets that you possibly can, get it down to where you can actually afford to go into a nursing home. It's a Medicaid benefit, basically. Medicare does not pay for nursing home or assisted livings. So you really have to either be a little bit of VA or Medicaid to afford a long-term care, or you have a long-term care insurance policy as well.
And those are so expensive that very few of us
Right, and you can't do it late in life because then it gets more expensive as you go.
Yeah,
so.
You definitely can't afford it at that point. Well, I know that was a huge part. Mom owned just a little bit of property away from her home. So to come up with that way, and you were my resource, that there are rules as far as if they plan to go back to their home, there was some care they could have in between. If you'll talk about that a little bit.
Right. There is a way to have institutional Medicaid. And what that does is if the spouse is still living, you can actually put everything in their name so that you can go into the nursing home for a little bit and then afford to live
Right.
in the nursing home setting.
Because for us, trying to sell that little bit of ranch land, you had to sell it and then use those funds to pay for the care. And average cost of a nursing facility at this
Right
point?
now, I think the average cost is about $8,500 a month. And that's a lot for anybody to afford.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can really. So you really need to make some changes now to get ready for that.
And a lot of us don't, and those changes keep happening of the look back period of when you own property. It was where it was a couple of years, and then I think it was 5 years when we dealt with that with Mom. And do you know for sure?
I think the last time
approximately
I saw it was about 5.5 years to 6.
So you really need to plan for that before. You still need to be healthy to be able to do that. And since that's not covered by Social Security or Medicare, explain what Medicaid truly is.
Medicaid is where you have and I don't know the actual rules now, but because I've been out of that setting, but I think you can only have $2,100 in your name to afford the Medicaid program. So it's kind of a lower income.
You're basically indigent.
Pretty much, yeah, poverty level. And they let you get on Medicaid and get you into long-term care.
Right. So basically public assistance is on the choices on some of the nursing homes, if it's one that is in a private facility or doesn't accept the Medicaid.
Yeah.
Boy, they're pricey off the charts, but the care levels, you don't know.
Yeah.
If a Medicare, one that accepts Medicaid may be a wonderful facility compared to others, but trying to search that out is really tough.
Yeah, the Medicaid doesn't qualify for assisted livings, so you really need the care from nursing skilled levels to be in the nursing home.
Well, let's talk about that. So when you go, when you get to a point that you need home health care, can you describe what those areas of care that you need that would make it where you would be eligible for it? Right.
Basically, you do the home health care in the home setting or a family member setting for the individual. So if you've had a fall or a wound or something like that in the home and need help, extra help at home, or not, you don't want to go to a long-term care facility at that point, then we can come in as a home health care provider and do the care in the home, and it's covered under your Medicare 100%. The Advantage plans, the Medicaid, all of that is insurance. All of that is part of that setting. And so that's the transition you can make before you actually have to go into long-term care. So we have physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, medical social work if you need them.
Okay.
And we do that so that they can stay in their home setting.
But this was a misconception for me. When you talk about we can provide home health care or home care.
Yes.
Typically, I would thought, oh, well, they're going to come in every day and help out.
Oh, yeah, that's not the case.
So tell me what it really means.
That's not the case. It depends on how much you need for the diagnosis that you have. But it is only about an hour per modality to come in to do the care for you. So a therapist might come in for an hour, but it's not a day. It's maybe once or twice a week. And then you'll have a bather to help you bathe, but it'll be about twice a week as well.
So a lot of those things, the very hands-on care has to come from a family member.
Yeah, we teach the family a lot of the care so that we can do that when we're off, not in that home.
And so if you have somebody that, a family member, the tough part is most of us need to continue working.
Right.
And yet you have a family member that literally has to have care. Are there ways that the family can be compensated or helped out in any way?
Yes, that's the non-skilled level.
Okay.
And we have caregiving kind of people that you can either hire personally or it is also covered under veterans or the VA or the Medicaid.
Okay.
But the Medicaid and the VA decides how many hours you're going to be able to get per week.
Wow.
Now, there is some other options you could do if they're kind of mobile. There is some adult daycare that they can go to during the day while you're working. And then you can be there at night with them as well.
Okay. But the home health care is probably, there's going to be an order written for the doctor that qualifies you for X amount of time.
Right, yeah. It has to be a certain diagnosis. You can be restarted if you still need care later, if the wound's not healed, or if you're still needing a little bit more physical therapy, tuning up after the hospital stay that you just had, or surgery, or whatever you've had at the hospital. And then we back out, and then if you need it again, you can always just get back on.
Okay.
It's not a penalty or you don't have to have a time in between to qualify again.
Are there classes that are available to help your family or friends that are caring for you to learn? I mean, to me, sometimes even surgeries, they send you away and you've got a drain tube or this or that, and it's like, I don't know how to take care of this. Are there places that you can be trained?
Right. Usually the hospital will train the family member a little bit, and then we will come in as a home health care agency and make sure that they're really good with what they're doing.
Okay.
Also, if a family member wants to be the one paid to take care of the family, they can go to classes. And, sometimes the children get off, they decide not to work anymore, and so they will go home and be with that individual, and they can get paid to do that.
Well, I know
with extra classes.
Okay, because I know a lot of families, if there's multiple children, they may take some FMLA and have 12 weeks that they can take off.
Right.
And they maybe can do a month or two, and then another child can come in and do another month or two and try to spread that out. But it's a tough situation.
Yeah,
it's really difficult. Talk a little bit about to me, when my mom went on hospice.
Okay.
The first time that word was said.
Mm-hmm. It's scary, isn't it?
You just have the assumption that this is imminent, like it's about to happen right away. But that's not necessarily.
No, that's not necessarily true at all. You just have to have a right diagnosis of a possible death within 6 months. We have people on hospice for years with the diagnosis of a COPD or, dementia or heart issues or anything like that. We're not God. We don't know when that's going to happen. But you have to have a certain diagnosis to qualify for hospice, and then we can do comfort care for you and do different kind of drugs to help you be comfortable as you're going through the process of dying.
And the levels of what can be prescribed for a patient that's on hospice care is much different than what can be done for home health.
Right, correct? Right. It's a different kind of narcotics, morphines, and those kind of things that you can get in hospice level, where the normal drugs you can get during the home health care.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a physician watching you at all times, a medical director watching the hospice patient.
And is there more visits that hospice does versus in home health care?
Yeah, they're on call 24/7. So it's the same kind of care, but as you get closer to where you're going to need it more as you're dying, then it increases quite a bit.
It's a tough situation, but I will say we actually went with interim with my mom, and the things on that, the morning she passed, a priest was called and came in and prayed with us, and they gave that faith-based help along to the family. And a lot of the times, I think the family is probably getting the service as much as the patient on a lot of those things.
Exactly, because they follow the family after a death for 13 months.
Yeah.
And make sure they're okay through the holidays, all those tough times after your family member has passed away. They will follow them and, of course, help them through all the grief.
Right. Because it gets to that point that even though it's better for that person, you still have that loss and that just, you've been full-time care, and then that void.
Mother's Day hits, it's your mother.
Right.
And so the pastor that's on our staff can help you through that.
Are there other resources out there for as far as like support groups, or how do you find information? I mean, I had you, so I was very fortunate. You were the one that I leaned on, but most people don't have a social worker as a best friend. How do you find those resources to know how to even get started?
It's really difficult if you don't know where to start, like you were saying. Social work is the best plan, of course. The hospice and the home health care do have a social worker available for these resources, like I did at the hospital.
Right.
But also our United Way has a 211 program. And so all of us have put our bank of resources into that program. And so if you're needing help with Alzheimer's support
Right.
group or a dementia of some sort, you can call that 211 in United Way, and they will give you all the resources for the support group that you're looking for, or food, electricity, whatever you might need.
Right. Because that was a tough one. It's like, how do we even get started on this and go about it? So you're literally in your position now. You work with when that doctor gives an order, then that referral comes in, and then how does the process start? Do they do an evaluation, the healthcare providers with
Yes,
the
yes. What we will
patient?
do is we'll take the referral,
Uh-huh.
and then we assign it to our RN, our nurse. She goes out and does an evaluation, and then she's kind of the gatekeeper of all the different services that we need to provide. So if they need a physical therapist, then she'll order physical therapy for that, or occupational or speech, and then she oversees the care. So there's a LPN that will go in and do some visits as well, and CNAs to help with,
So different levels.
yeah, different levels of nursing to take care of that patient along the way.
And actually, a lot of the different home health and hospice businesses accept volunteers, right? Or some of them do?
Hospice does, yes.
Hospice does.
They have a volunteer coordinator, and so they have people that volunteer to work for that hospice, and they put them in there to help with, card writing, little bit of house cleaning, food preparation,
Right.
any kind of volunteer work that they might need to do to help, just to be with that person, hold their hand, listen to them, talk about their stories and stuff like that. We do have the volunteers for that.
Are there things that you recommend that people, we were talking about prior to getting to a point of having somebody in care, preparing for that, medical power of attorneys, is that a good thing to have?
It is extremely important.
And what
to
does
have
that do?
A living will and a durable power of attorney will make you let your family know what you want towards the end of life. And so I have one. You assign your person that you want to make these decisions for you. There's 3 spots in the medical power of attorney to decide. If you have 3 kids, you can put those on there. It has your daughters on there. It says when you can make those decisions for the individual, like myself. And then on the other side, it also talks about the living will, where if you don't want to be hooked up to machines, or you do,
Right.
organ donation, cremation, all that is in there. So there's no guessing game when it comes to the end for your family, basically.
Which is huge when you
Yeah.
know that you don't have to make that decision yourself. They've already made it for themselves.
Right, and it only takes place when you're irreversible coma or if you are terminally ill.
And then the part of that too is you can't sign that when you already are in a compromised state of mind.
Exactly.
So you need that in place. And do you always have to go through an attorney to get that?
No, you don't. It's actually a free service for the medical power of attorney and the living will.
Okay.
You can get them at a hospital. You can get them from pretty much anywhere. But the financial, you'll have to go through a lawyer.
Okay. But those types of things, when you look at it early on in life, when you're not to that point, it's probably much easier to just be objective and go, I'm good, but this is just in case and plan for the future.
So at that point, you will have to have a lawyer if you're not able to make those decisions for yourself.
Tell me a happy feel. I mean, I know this is more of the business side of the care, and I'm sure you miss social work, but you probably had burnout as well.
Yeah.
Being the one that helped all the families. Tell me of a situation that was something that made you feel good that you helped with.
Well, something that was kind of unique was there was a patient that actually had money but didn't want to go into a nursing home. This is at the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And we were just joking one day, and I said, well, if you don't want to pay that kind of money for a nursing home, we can get you on a cruise ship the rest of your life. And she says, do you think you can? And so we made that happen for her, and she's still cruising to this day.
And how old was she when she started this?
She started at 70, and I think she's at 96, and I still get a Christmas card from her every single year of her adventures. And she has 3 or 4 children. And so the ship that she's on a Royal Caribbean. The ship that she's on has the nursing care, it has the doctor's care, it has everything she needs, food,
housekeeping,
everything.
laundry.
She has her own little room, and it's cheaper than a nursing home to live there, and she gets to see the world. And then she has to get off the ship 3 months.
Okay.
And she goes and spends a month with each one of her children.
And then
gets
pops
back on the so
back
that's
on
her
there.
family, is the Royal Caribbean. But that was just kind of a joking thing. So
Sign me up
think
for
so.
that.
Yeah, exactly. I want one of those.
Let's do that together.
Exactly. That'd be fun.
But so I know there's a lot of things in mental health care and different things that we don't have resources.
Right.
But the social workers, when I got to know you, that view of it gave me a whole new appreciation and perspective of what you do. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And it fills that need inside of you and your heart as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for coming in, Kenda, and taking time from your day and giving this information out to everyone.
You're welcome.
And to all of you, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Cheers.